Whether it's being patient enough to stop plants or being kind enough to give all of your utility to your teammates, I've collected 7 heavenly virtues as siege operators in Rainbow Six Siege. The first of which being the virtue of patience. The virtue of patience is the ability to wait for something without getting overly angry or giving up at what you're doing. The operator I've chosen to represent this heavenly virtue is Echo. Now, in terms of waiting for something to happen, Echo players are the cream of the crop. You simply have to be a very patient person in order to play Echo correctly. Unfortunately for you, if you're an Echo player, a lot of your gameplay is just being on camera. With the ability to have faster cameras due to the drone rework that came out a few seasons ago, that's something that's increasingly more fun for you to do. But regardless of that, Echo is a 3 armor and he has an ACOG, meaning that his playstyle is naturally just more suited to holding long angles and just kind of sitting there patiently. You're not going to be the type of person to swing everything and take a bunch of gunfights when you have a 3 armor operator with an ACOG and you have drones as an ability. This requires you to be patient to get more kills, which is why I think Echo perfectly represents the virtue of patience. As Echo, you have to be patient when stunning people to go for kills, or even stunning people so that your teammates can get kills for you. He's a very teammate-oriented operator. You also have to be patient when you're trying to stun people out of planting. You have to wait for the exact time to stun them and wait for the exact time to stun them a second time, and then you have to suit up your other Echo camera and stun them 2 more times. But you have to wait for them to be able to even plant in the first place. It's a lot of waiting playing this operator, and that's why I think Echo is the perfect operator to represent the heavenly virtue of patience. This is an operator that if you play, you will become more patient at. And throughout this video, you'll see that the more you play certain operators for their heavenly virtue, the more you will become that heavenly virtue. More proof of this can be found in the next heavenly virtue, which is the virtue of temperance. Temperance is defined as self-control and exercising restraint and discipline to what you're doing. The operator I found that perfectly represents this heavenly virtue is Smoke. Now, in the increasing meta of rushing with shields, Ying, a fast-paced meta, especially after the 1.5 and LMG meta, playing Smoke has become increasingly difficult. This is due to the fact that when Smoke was released, you had to time his canisters to the end of the round. Each Smoke canister lasts 10 seconds, and you having 3 of them meant that you had time to be able to completely deny the objective for the last 30 seconds of the round if you wanted to play Smoke to his fullest effectiveness. But now that the rounds last even shorter and shorter as seasons are released on and on, it's become increasingly difficult for Smoke to play like this. Now, you're honestly rewarded for playing Smoke early, or maybe having the self-control and the temperance to do smoke canisters and the exact correct timing of every single time you throw your smoke canisters. And that's because honestly the meta is just slowing down. You see, it's not exactly where you throw your smoke canisters that makes you a good smoke player, it's really when. It's how long you're able to hold off an area before you have to use your smoke canisters to hold it off, and how willing you are to hold an angle and hold a position before giving it up and using your smokes instead. It's all about how much can you control the area and really squeeze that restraint and not back out of a room that you're sitting in without throwing your smoke canisters to back out of it. And exercising restraint, self-control, discipline, and the ability to hold down what you're doing, and no matter how difficult it is the perfect example of what temperance is in an operator. Especially with operators like Goyo on the board, who you can just put your utility down and you don't have to worry about it, or operators like Tachanka, where you have so much utility you don't have to worry about the timing. Smoke has become increasingly popular in terms of people who are much more level-tempered, which is why Smoke is the perfect operator to represent the heavenly virtue of temperance. Another operator who perfectly represents their heavenly virtue is the operator that represents diligence. Diligence is doing hard work no matter how hard it is. It's being able to lay down on the line and just get things done even when everything is going against you. The operator that I've found to perfectly fit this description is Monty. Now, you might be thinking that Monty is a no-brain operator that people can just run and get a lot of value with even if they don't have skill, but in higher lobbies it actually couldn't be further from the truth. You see, in higher lobbies, countering shields is pretty easy. Not only do higher level people know how to just melee shields, but also they know how to bring operators like Clash and Legion and it be good because they're good Clash and Legion players. You could even bring Capcan a lot, and especially in console lobbies, you could bring people like Warden to counter people like Blitz, or a Shotgun to even counter the Monty. So Monty at a higher level is actually pretty hard to play once people start to learn how to counter it. It takes a lot of diligence, however, in order to play Monty correctly, even in that higher elo, because a good Monty player honestly never really unextends his shield. All he'll do is walk in and give info for his team for them to swing on, and if the enemy ends up shooting your teammates, all you have to do is unextend, which makes them look at you, which will make your teammate kill them. So it's a win-win scenario for you and your teammate who is pushing with Monty, whether you're the Monty or your teammate is. And that is the proper way to play Monty. If you want to play Monty in a more entry-esque sort of playstyle, you can run in the building and maybe have your entry frag, or whether it be Ashy on a Buck, whatever it may be, they can go behind you and refrag. You can go in and melee people as fast-paced as you want, but you never really want to unextend until you're right next to the person to melee them. A good Monty player knows this. Only do the hard work, no matter how hard it is, whether there's barbed wire, Legion, Tachanka, Clash, or any sort of traps on the board, because a good Monty player doesn't really get countered by any of with that. It's pretty easy to just shoot a Legion Mine or shoot a Kapkan trap or deal with a clash if you don't push where the clash is. That's why in the highest level of play, whether it be champion level elo or even professional Rainbow Six Siege players, Monty is played almost every single time that Monty can be played, because once you learn how to play Monty correctly, he is almost uncounterable. So not only in playstyle do Monty players have to do the hard work, no matter how hard it is, but Monty players have to do the hard work by just learning how to play the operator correctly, no matter how hard it is, and once they do, it pays off extremely well. And doing the work no matter how hard it is the perfect representation of the virtue of diligence, which is why I think Monty perfectly fits this virtue. Another virtue that pays off extremely well is the virtue of kindness. Kindness can be defined as being friendly even at the point of self-sacrifice. The operator that I've chosen to represent the virtue of kindness is Doc. Now, Doc players in general are not very kind, but I will say the ones that are the kindest people you will ever meet. Not because of some overflowing personality trait, but the fact of the matter is, a lot of the times if you have a Doc player that actually heals you, it can be the difference between you dying or living. The difference between you winning a round or losing a round. A Doc that actually gives his stims to his teammates can feel like the best thing ever. Whenever I ask a Doc for a heal and he actually heals me, I feel like a homeless person in a Mr. Beast video. As a player, you're overwhelmed with happiness because it's so rare that it happens. But when it does, you feel like they're the best player in your lobby. They're just super kind. And that feeling alone makes you want to put Doc in the virtue of kindness above any other operator in the game. Even if you do play Doc for the ACOG, the frag ability, whatever it may be, you shouldn't be afraid to heal your teammates. You want to be pretty kind with your Doc sims whenever you need to be. It's one of the very few operators that you can really be kind to your teammates to be able to fit this virtue in the first place. Another virtue that is very strong in terms of kindness is the virtue of charity. Charity is seen as aiding others to make the world a better place in general, often without any pay in return. And the operator that's similar to Doc that I've found for the virtue of charity is Rook. At least with Doc, when you play Doc, you're getting something in return. Again, you have the ACOG, a low recoil SMG with a bailiff, and barbed wire if you want to be able to counter shields or a BP. It's pretty self-rewarding to play that operator, as you can also heal yourself. With Rook, that's not really the case. With Rook, sure, you have the good gun and ACOG, but the ability doesn't really give you much. Impacts are cool to have, I guess, but you're not really going to be roaming as Rook unless you just want to do it because of the gun. When you play Rook in terms of his utility, you're just doing it for your team, which is the most charitable thing that you can really do. The ability that Rook has is the most charitable thing that I can possibly think of in Rainbow Six Siege. All you do is give your teammates armor that they can wear. That's the entire ability. You're giving something to your teammates. Playing Rook is often seen as one of the best operators that you can play as a new player. Not because Rook's ability is broken and good for you to learn, but purely because of the fact that if you die, you at least had the charity to give your teammates utility in the process. Which is why in terms of Siege operators, I really don't think there's another Siege operator that perfectly exemplifies charity as much as Rook does. Now, in terms of charity and kindness, the two virtues that I've gone over in the past, you might have been thinking of the next operator that could fit those roles that I'm about to talk about for the virtue of humility. Humility is staying humble no matter your position in life, and no matter your status. The operator that I think perfectly represents humility in a nutshell is Thermite. Not because Thermite is a humble operator in practice of their utility, but here's the real reason. Everybody can get frags on Ashe, everybody can get frags on Buck, everybody can get frags in general, and everybody wants to. It's the most fun playstyle to have. It takes a real one to look at your team and go, you know what, I'm gonna let them play Ashe. There's a wall that needs to get open, so I'm gonna play some Thermite. It takes humility to know that you have the gun skill to play that Ashe, but you're gonna sit down and let your teammates do it and be humble and play the wall denial instead. And honestly, for me, I kind of like doing that because Thermite's gun is fun to play anyway, and most people think the same way and don't see a problem with it. At least most people that are humble, because for actually most people, that's not really the case. It really takes a humble person to be able to put their ego aside and not eat at the table. It really takes a humble person to get a wall open and not just ego swing and ego frag everywhere, which is why I think out of literally every operator on this list, Thermite perfectly represents the virtue of humility more than any other. Now, instead of Thermite, you might have actually been thinking of this next operator for that sin, which is fair. But I think this operator better represents the virtue of chastity. Chastity is defined as a loyalty to somebody else, whether it be in a romantic way or not. The operator I think that represents the virtue of chastity the best is Thatcher. Now, as much as you can say that Thatcher is good for humility, charity, and kindness, the other three virtues that I've gone over, I couldn't help but put the other three virtues I've gone over. You can't deny that this operator belongs in chastity as well. To prove this to you, when you think of getting a wall open, what is the one other thing that you need to get a wall open other than a hard breach? EMPs. And what's the one operator that brings EMPs that are not only better than pocket EMPs, but brings more than just two of them? Thatcher. When you think of the perfect operator to help you get walls open, somebody that's loyal to those wall operators, which is what chastity means, you think of a Thatcher player. This is why I think Thatcher perfectly represents chastity, because he's just loyal to getting walls open and loyal to his hard breachers to help get those walls open. I personally love duo queuing with teammates that play support and play Thatcher because I like to open walls like I stated earlier. So when a Thatcher is selected on the board, it absolutely makes my day. And I'm sure you, the viewer watching this, can relate to that as well. There's not a single other operator or role role, whether it be on attack or defense, that's more loyal to another operator or role to get walls open. You might be thinking of people like Cade and Tubarao, or Bandit and Tubarao, or even Osa EMPs to an Ace, but I think everybody knows that the real Chastity couple is Thatcher and Thermite, or at least Thatcher and somebody else, which is why Thatcher, in specific, is the operator that I've chosen to represent the virtue of Chastity. And that is the 7 heavenly virtues of Rainbow Six Siege operators. Let me know who I missed out in the comments, then check out this next video, and I hope I'll see you there.